The better you are at predicting what's going to happen, or the better you think you are at predicting what's going to happen, the more likely expectations are to be ruining your life experience. Hi, I'm Chris Burke. Welcome to Healing from A to Z with Masterful You and KB, where we talk about the topics that keep us from creating a life that we love, without most of the time topics that we don't realize are impacting us as negatively as they are. Expectations was one that got me all the time. And frankly, most of the people I meet who are the most successful in business, I was a business consultant, still work in the business field. And so most of the people that I meet in business who are really successful are actually kind of have a knack for being able to predict outcomes. The challenge with that is that when we recognize the patterns, this is about pattern recognition. So we recognize a pattern and then we project into the future how that pattern is going to go. What we miss out on is the opportunity to improve the pattern, to understand the dynamics that are under the pattern better, and actually to cultivate an experience that would be more positive or win-win for the people involved. The other piece that really gets tricky is that if I have an expectation that something's going to happen, I'm actually subconsciously programmed. I mean, this is just how our instincts work, to try to steer that pattern in that direction, whether I know it or not. What we call that is manipulation, right? So I'm going to try to get all of the players involved to go toward my expectation, because that's what gives me a sense of security. The idea that I know what's going to happen and that I'm in control of it. The problem, of course, is that we're often not in control of it. In fact, we're very seldom in control. We have an ability to influence. We have an ability to interact with people and, communicate how it is that we want things to go. But at the end of the day, we can't make people be what we want them to be. We can't make them want to take the action that we want them to take. The best that we can do is communicate with them as leaders what it is that we see in our vision, and then help them to connect with that vision so that we have a shared outcome and a shared sense of journey, a shared sense of, yeah, this is where I want to go, for each person, for their own personal reasons, because it will be different and it must be emotional. We like to think that we are intellectual beings who are making rational decisions. Science has proven beyond any doubt that we are not. We are emotionally driven people. So we will take action based on the emotion that we have when we start to feel insecure about things not going in the way that we expected. We'll be upset and we'll start to feel anxious. And a lot of times that anxiety will come out as anger and control tactics. And those are things that make people simply disconnect from us and not tell us the truth. It affects businesses, it affects marriages, it affects, home life in general, it affects politics, right? Anytime we're in a situation where somebody's emotionally triggered, where they're not getting their way, and that causes them to get aggressive, which is a natural response to someone who's not able to manage their emotions. Somebody who hasn't developed emotional intelligence, that's a natural response. Believe me, I had not for a very long time. I walked around just reacting to everything that was happening, thinking other people who weren't doing what I wanted them to do were being difficult, right? Just not able to see that my expectations set me up for having an emotional reaction to reality. Instead of being able to calmly sit with reality and question people and connect and communicate and say, what is it that you're hoping comes out of this? You know, how would you approach it? Instead of being able to take it in that information, I had this idea that I had to have all of the answers and that I had to make it happen. And so I wasn't able to receive or to connect with the people around me. I was just trying to be a robot marching in a direction, right? So that was early on in my career. And what I found out is that when you get into that place, people just don't tell you what's actually happening. They start people pleasing. Some people please. Some people get belligerent and passive aggressive. I mean, all kinds of different things happen. But this is all happening in response to the way we show up. So we can influence this. This is why we talk about own your experience. When you're cool in your skin, when you know that whatever happens in your reality, you're going to be okay, you're going to be able to maintain a sense of peace inside your skin, and you'll be able to actually think about what's happening and decide, choose consciously how you want to respond to that, right? And move forward in connection and conversation with the people around you, you'll be an incredible powerhouse. But when we're moving around not realizing that our expectations are causing us to behave in certain ways that actually disconnect us from the people around us and cause them not to trust us, frankly. And also we start to not trust ourselves, right? Because things don't go the way we expect them to go a huge percentage of the time. And when they don't, it's exhausting because you have to figure out who's to blame. Then you've got this emotional energy around being disappointed or angry with them. And then you've got to do something about them, right? There are all these different things that happen simply because we had an expectation that we weren't aware of the emotional content behind it. So it's okay to have, obviously set intentions, but then allow reality to be what it is. If our expectation is in the sand and we're going to feel scared, insecure, off balance, frustrated, angry, all of those things, if things don't go our way, then we're going to struggle. Life is not going to be fun, and we're not going to be able to build our lives on a solid foundation. So even if we have periods, relatively long periods of growth and, success, eventually life brings along things, challenges that knock us off kilter. And all of a sudden we find out that we had built a life on a house of cards. I know what I'm speaking about from personal experience, and I help people at Masterful You who generally were going along in life thinking they had it figured out, thinking everything was kind of going the way they wanted it to, and then some sort of crisis happened that just wiped them out, and they said, wait a minute, now I feel like I don't know anything anymore. And that's a natural part of this process. It's not that you don't know anything. It's just that a lot of the things that you were focusing on in those periods where things seem to be going okay, a lot of the things that you were focusing on were things that were not going to help you to build a solid foundation and a framework for a life you love. That's all. It's a big deal. And it's something that we can actually change. And we'll get started with that right now. So I'm going to invite you to write down 3 expectations that you have right now about things that are going to happen in the future. So talk about, if you have kids, what do you expect is going to happen with your children? This is a big one for parents. You have this plan, what your kids are going to do, who they're going to be in the world. And then the kid shows up with their own personality and their own goals and their own emotions, right? And all of a sudden we find out that this is going to be different. And we can really struggle with that. And it can create separation in our relationships. So what are your expectations about your kids? What are your expectations about your marriage, about your home life, about your business? Maybe about a project you're working on in your business. What are your expectations about retirement? Think about those things. Write down 3 expectations that you have. What we're doing now is bringing them to the surface because a lot of times we don't realize that we have expectations. Then we're going to write down 3 things that we did not expect that have happened in the last 5 years. Just 5 things that just like, whoa, I didn't see that coming. Doesn't have to be giant. Just something that got your attention. Write that down. Okay, put a circle around that. This is your starting point. This is what expectations mean to you right now. This is what's in your awareness about expectations, and it's a really good starting point. Okay, if you're enjoying this video, if it's making you think, if it's piquing your curiosity, please like, share, and subscribe. I really appreciate your help in getting the word out. People are just walking around suffering needlessly, not realizing that we need healing. We have a lot of parts inside that need some nurturing, and we can do that. And when we do, what becomes possible in our lives just completely, off the scale compared to what we expected. Bump. Expectations. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being it's like impossible to get out of bed these days, and 10 being I'm moving along in my purpose, prosperity is happening, I feel totally aligned. Where are you right now? Write that number down. And then we're going to interview this experience. We're going to get to know this experience. You are not your thoughts. You are not your feelings. You are not your actions. What you are is the awareness of all of that that's happening. You're the questioner, the observer. And so what we're going to do is observe what's happening inside of our experience at the level that we're at, so that we know where we're starting. And then we can decide where it is that we want to be, and we'll set a detailed map for ourselves about what that experience will be like. And then we start moving along on that journey, and we'll actually know where we started, where we're going, and where we are in relation. It's one of the things that always drove me crazy about, self-help. And it's funny, self-help, everybody I know needs help working on, our belief systems, our expectations, our traumas from childhood that never got addressed. And traumatic childhood events can be tiny little things to other people. But for a child who finds out that love is conditional or approval is conditional, that's traumatic. And all of us learned, or I can't say all of us, everyone I've ever met learned that in a painful way, in a traumatic way. And until we heal that, it's still there with us. So let's get our healing done. Okay, so let's interview this experience. When you are currently at the number you're at, what are you thinking? Write down, I think, and write those things down. Then do the same with I feel. What are you feeling about these expectations, about this set of expectations? You might say, I feel disappointed, I feel sad, I feel excited, I feel shame. Shame and guilt are big ones in our world. What are you saying and doing to yourself and others? What are you saying to yourself about these expectations? What are you doing as a result of your expectations when they do work and when they don't? And then how about to the outside world? What do you say about your expectations? What action do you take when your expectations are met and when they're not? Take your time with this exercise. Pause the video, obviously, if you need to, or come back to it later. Okay, what do you sense in your body? So our bodies never lie. If there's something going on that we need to address, there's a physical representation of that, but oftentimes we're not paying attention to it. I used to have bleeding ulcers and panic attacks, and I was not aware that there was something going on that I needed to address, right? I thought it was a physical thing. I didn't understand that there was something underlying that. And when I resolved my energy and really owned my experience, my bleeding ulcers, my panic attacks, my allergies, all of that went away. Right? So this is, I know of what I speak. All right, let's sense that body. What's going on in there? Where is there tension? Is there any? Maybe you feel a twinge somewhere. You might feel a flutter. Your jaw might be tight. Your stomach tense. These are some of the common ones. And notice your toes. Are your toes curled? All right, and finally, what do you know is true when you are at this level? So I would kind of call this the control level, right? This is the level in experience where we think we need to have control, and we think that control is safety. And anytime we start to feel like we're out of control, that's danger. That's when our instincts kick in and we start behaving via unconscious patterns instead of being able to take in the reality of what's happening and respond in a mindful or thoughtful way. So we keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And we wonder what's wrong with the world because that's the way it seems. Okay, now, where are you headed with your expectations, with your experience of them? If you want to feel comfortable that you can handle what happens in a thoughtful way and remain connected with people and work your way to resolution when different scenarios come up, then you're talking about being at a 7 or an 8 or above. But I always recommend we start with a 7 or 8 because that 10 will just keep getting further and further away because we'll find out, wow, I had no idea how limiting my unconscious patterns were in my life, or how limiting my experience was because of my unconscious patterns. And as you start to expand in what's possible for you, when you break free from those patterns and you start to be able to actually respond to reality instead of acting in response to these instincts that are being triggered, then all of a sudden you're like, whoa, there's no limit to where I can go. And there isn't. It's all up to you at that point. But we have to get into that place where our emotions are not hijacking us and whipping us here and there and having us apologize all the time for bad behavior. Yelling at people, regret, all of that kind of stuff. Once you have that number, and write down what it is that you will think. So just sit with yourself and imagine, what will you think when you are at that number? What will be different? What will you feel emotionally? What will you say and do to yourself and to others? What will you sense in your body? How will your experience of being in your skin be different? And finally, what will you know is true at that experience when you are so confident that you can handle reality and you don't need it to be the way you projected it to be, that you can deal with the reality as it is? What will that experience be like? What will you know is true? All right, awesome, great work. Now you've got yourself a map. You've got a starting point, reality, this is where I am. You've got a destination, this is where I've decided I'm going to go. The conscious mind has stated that through this exercise and made it available to the unconscious mind, which is where all of the transformation and all of the work gets done, right? It doesn't often seem that way, but that's where the majority of it happens. So we're now going to ask a question. I call it putting the toast in the magic toaster. We're now going to ask a question of our unconscious mind, right? So our conscious mind it's the tip of the iceberg. It carries just a little bit of information. Most of it is in our unconscious mind. And in order to access that information, we need to ask questions. And then we need to be able to receive. It's one of the reasons that meditation or prayer or sitting in silence is so powerful, because it gives us a chance to open a window and hear from the unconscious. whatever questions we've asked. So the question we're going to ask today is, what do I need to know or do to move along on my journey from where I am to where I'm going? And one of the things that I said is that we have an Own Your Experience class at Masterful You that will support you on that journey. We also have lots of free resources. And there are people all over the world now who are practicing, helping people to improve their experience. This is about learning to trust your unconscious mind, listen to your intuition, your inspiration. Bring them back online as a key part of your experience. They are higher forms of intelligence. And you don't need to take my word for it, because when you experience it, you know, wow, this is life-changing. But so often we're being driven by this emotional, unconscious pattern stuff that we're not accessing these higher levels of ourselves. They're there to be accessed. They are part of you. They are what make you brilliant. So let's reconnect with those. On Fridays at 11 o'clock Eastern Time, you can tune in for Q&A, live Q&A on YouTube. You can put questions in the comments below and we will answer your questions. If anything I said just sounded crazy to you, like impossible, write that down too. Let's have a conversation about it. It's time that we humans stop pretending that we know everything already and we start talking about the things that we're wanting to learn. It's curiosity that helps us to evolve, that helps us to grow, that helps us to improve our experience. And right now you're showing courage in being this far in this process. So I applaud that. I thank you for spending your precious time with me. And thank you for being you.